Hi, you are with me, Dennis Salan, in People's Channel. Like in other days, we are taking on very important topics. Today, we are zooming into men's world. We are looking at men's specific characteristics that, in their own terms, tend to distinguish them from women. Remember the whole scripture that says women are weaker vessels. This scripture is largely misinterpreted, misunderstood, and misrepresented by men because men tend to believe that it makes them stronger. It places them in a position whereby they have to behave like women are useless in most cases, whereas the scripture didn't really mean that. We'll come back to that on another discussion, just like we'll have a separate discussion on women. We'll one day have to zoom into women's world, but today, as I said, we're zooming into men's world. Now, it is usual to hear people saying men are stronger. Be a man. Men don't cry. Men are heads of families and all those things. And those sayings, those expressions tend to build into society and particularly into men's thinking and understanding, as to mean that men are more stronger and women are less stronger or more weaker. And as a result, men tend to lead the superficial lives. They tend to lead the false lives based on that understanding. Because if, for example, we understand that men don't cry, even when men face difficult situations, they don't want to be seen to be affected. They don't want to be seen to be shedding tears. Like when they've lost a loved one, they want to put up a brave face in front of everyone to show that they are men. And that is totally wrong because men are just as human as women. Men are people. So crying, asking for help, and all those traits should be done. We should see them being done by men, unashamedly so. But men, because of that indoctrination, that societal indoctrination that says men don't cry, men are stronger, men are not the weaker vessels but a stronger vessel, they tend to make men behave in manner that puts them in the long run in a very dangerous situation. Because remember, if you don't express your grief by crying when you face a difficult situation or a sorrowful situation, that will catch up with you later, because you will always have that anger, you'll always have that sadness, you'll always have that hovering above your head. Now, men, in their quest to send out an expression or a feeling that they are stronger, they tend to behave in a manner that jeopardizes them. It places their wellness in jeopardy. For example, when dogs, for example, emerge and chase after people in the streets, just because men want to prove that they are stronger, they won't run. And please forgive me, when I'm saying men, I'm not including everyone, but this is a general observation that out of 100%, 70% will behave like this, which means out of 10 men, seven men will want to show that they are made out of metal, they are tough as nail. Now, I want us to focus our attention on a different aspect of life, which is driving. If I could ask you of any 10 cars that you have seen spinning on the road, how many were driven by men and how many by women? You might find that out of 10, 9 were driven by men. In fact, I'm convicted. I'm speaking out of conviction because I've rarely seen women spinning cars in my life. I've seen men spinning cars even in situations, in places where it doesn't warrant that because there are children or the place is risky, is dangerous, but they will spin just to show the people around that they are good drivers, they are brave drivers. People will usually screech when they take off. Out of 10, you'll find that 3 are women, the rest are men. And we want to look at this. We want to look at this really and conscientize society, men in general, that there are things that men do. I'm one of them. I spin my car. I screech my car. What we do as men, which in the long run we want to make an expression or an impression that we are tough, we are wise, we are streetwise. It's in most cases the exact opposite because it shows how insensitive we are to other people's lives. It shows how inconsiderate we are. It shows how we don't care about the wellness, the safety, about other people. Out of 100% of accidents that take place on the roads in South Africa, in Britain, Malaysia, Egypt, Swaziland, you can name any place that you can think of. I'm saying out of 100% of accidents, more than 60% accidents are attributable to men. Be that high-speed driving, be that drunken driving. Because men think they are sharp drivers, they can drive at any speed, they can brake at any given space when needs arises for braking, and that in most cases doesn't turn out to be the case. That is why most accidents are attributable to men. And in that case, not just men who have started driving within a very short space of time, but men with long experience of driving, just because of that understanding, that false understanding that men are stronger, men are tough, men are wiser, which comes from that gross misinterpretation of the whole scripture and that gross misunderstanding of what it means that be a man. We end up doing a lot of harm in society. Women, as I said, we'll talk about women the other day. Women have their own fair share of good and bad, but today I'm focusing more on the bad of men so that we rectify and we contribute positively to society. Most of the accidents, to add on that, are attributable to alcohol. You find that people who have been drinking for a long time, some of them cannot even stand up. They were just dragged to their cars. Now they want to drive because they are men and they say they are good drivers. But alcohol is alcohol. It doesn't respect you, doesn't respect your body. That's why when you drive under the influence, you are highly likely to cause accidents because your judgment is clouded. Your judgment, your actions are more clumsier than when you are sober. And what I know, following the observations, following the studies that I've seen, women who take alcohol are usually prone to fear of driving. They avoid driving when they've taken alcohol. But men, they think they're sharp when they've taken more than enough. And this is something that I think we as men, we should avoid for the sake of everyone else around us. Now, we as men, because of that prejudice, that misunderstanding of ourselves and the misunderstanding of what is expected out of us, we tend to lead false lives. We tend to live unrealistic lives. What do I mean by that? By that, I mean that in most cases, instead of contributing towards peace, towards calm, towards tranquility, we find ourselves contributing towards the opposite. I don't want to talk about examples of rage driving. In South Africa, there is a type of driving that we call gusheshe, where people have organized that sport. But beyond sport, people want to translate that into everyday lives. Road rage, people competing in public roads, forgetting that public roads are meant for the public, are meant for everyone, inconveniencing people who are rightful users of the roads. Because once we engage in road rage, we override the road rules, the safety rules. We don't subject ourselves to the normal rules of safety, the normal rules of using the road. We don't care who is on the road. We don't care about the old people crossing the road, the senior citizens, the children coming from the kindergartens, the crashes, people, ailing people coming from or to hospital or to the surgery. We don't care about that. We want to prove a point that my car can outrun my friend's car because it's a super engine. These lives are not realistic. I can go on and on talking about what women do, but I want us to rub. By saying this, I'm not saying men are all negative, men are all bad, but I'm focusing on the bad thing that we do under the influence of the thinking and the understanding that men are stronger, men are tough as nails. I want us to move out of that frame of mind I want us as men to embrace positivity, to be the leaders in society as we are expected to be. Because when the Creator said, women are weaker vessels, it was only to say that men are expected to provide the leadership, not weak in terms of sponge versus iron. No, it was in terms of understanding that man was the first person to be ordained by creation to be on earth, and women followed by being extracted from the rib of man. That's all, and nothing else. No further interpretation, because if we interpret it further, we get it wrong and we act it wrong. We will live it wrong. Now, there are good examples of things that men do that contribute positively to society, of course. Bravo to that. I'm not focusing on that, but I'm zooming into men's world in terms of the things that men do because there is a push, there's an urge to prove a particular perception, a particular point that man is tough. Man is the head of the family. Man is the undisputable leader of society. Men can do as they like. That shouldn't be the case. That mustn't be the case. Men must take the front seat. Men must take the leadership position, take the reins, show the way, lead us to Canaan. Don't lead us to the pit of fire. Lead the world to Canaan. It's your responsibility, man. Now, as I'm closing this discussion, I hope I haven't offended men. Starting with myself, I hope I haven't offended myself. I haven't degraded myself. But I hope I've come up with food for thought, something to take into consideration, something to provoke more thinking. I've started brainstorming with the intention of channeling our energy into positive action, because that is what is expected of us men. I'll come to women, as I promise. I'll come to women. But today, it's men. And, let me ask one question before I leave. Before I leave here, men behave like they don't use mirrors. They want to, just out of that same frame of mind, they want to behave like mirrors were made for women. And you know what happens when you don't use a mirror? Well, if you are going to dig the garden for the day, or you're going to work on the trench, I'm not talking about you, but if you are an executive in a government, a public office, or a company, a corporation, you need the mirror, just like women use the mirror. I know women use the mirror, and in most cases, women, when they dress in the morning, they waste a lot of time in front of the mirror, between the mirror and the wardrobe. Because one thing for sure, the outfit that you see women wearing outside, it's not necessarily the first outfit of the morning. It should be the fifth one in most cases, after careful consideration with feedback between the mirror and the wardrobe. And we as men, we think using the mirror is weakness. And that is not the case, because there are positions, there are instances where you need to look the part. You need to represent whatever structure or whatever organization you are involved in. You are a man, but you are an image of that organization or institution at the same time. And the mirror is your friend, is your companion. It's not using the mirror, depending on the mirror, getting feedback, reflection from the mirror. It's not a symbol of weakness. It's not something that is relegated to women. It will save you and your institution a lot of embarrassment, and it will attract a lot of good. There are things that we as men want to impress by speeches and the like, which could be easily enhanced by our looks. And because we think we're men, we don't need mirrors, then we make that hell of a mistake that crashes everything into soft pieces. Now, men, in their understanding, or in our understanding as being stronger, we need mirrors. We need all the other things that the women take into consideration as necessities of life. We need to be our best. We need to look our best, because we want, living in the world where best cannot be shelved under the carpet. Why am I spending time on an issue like mirrors while I'm talking about men? Don't we have men in fashion? We have men in fashion, in modeling, just like we have men in the battlefield, in the military. We have men who puff their faces, and they tend to be looked upon as being sissy, being unmanly. That must be rubbed off of our mentality, because we're sharing this world with women, and whatever is good for women is good for men. Just like today, we have women who go underground in the mines, just at the bowels of the mines. Then we must also have men in the hospital who are doing the auxiliary work that is normally attached to women. So what I'm driving at here is that without moving out of the framework that men must provide leadership, men are heads, because I don't want to get into that politics, but what I want to get is that if there is anything that up to now, as men, we have relegated away from us because we think it makes us look weaker. This is for women. Then today, let us take a second look. Let's take a second look. That's why we don't cry when we're at pain. That's why we don't run when dogs come grappling at us. That's why, in most cases, we start fights where fights were not warranted. One day when I was driving in the nearby town here, and for that matter, I was with my little kid, my daughter, and yes, my two little kids. And because it's this one-way street, and as I was driving along, another car reversed in front of me, and I had to stop because it's a one-way traffic. Now, as I stopped, I waited for that car to reverse so that can move on forward. Then someone behind started hooting. When I wanted to find out why, I said, who the hell do you think you are, such that you can close the road for all of us here? I tried to ignore him, and he came back at me, started hooting again, revving the car. I said, if you continue closing the road, I'm going to come at you. I'll take you by your throat. Now, I was a father in the car, and I had to show my kids that I'm their father, they are protected, they are safe, because if I allow someone to kick me around in front of my kids, then psychologically, I'm damaging them. I'm showing them that they are vulnerable. Then I shouted back, and I stopped the engine. But fortunately, someone passing by along there said, "No, calm down, calm down." Then I started again my engine and went on. But because that one was a man, wanted to prove to the onlookers that he's a man, I also had to prove that I'm a man. But it was messy. It was a messy situation, not MERCY, but messy, MESSY. It was mess. It was unnecessary in the first place. Both his attack and my response, they were both unnecessary, but at that time we were caught up in that fury. We wanted to prove how men we are. And in most cases, ugly situations erupt between men because due to that understanding that man is tough, man is stronger, we want to show that we cannot be pushed around. We want to show that nobody can play with us. And in most cases, we allow emotion to overtake rationalism. Rational. And now, as men, let us always be human. Let us always be simple. Let us always be ready to be positive, to be helpful. Let us take the back seat when it comes to confrontations. I've spoken about one guy who shot another one because they were arguing over the game which they were watching on television. There was supporting the different teams. The other one was supporting the losing team, the other one the winning team. And the one whose team was winning made a remark that touched the one whose team was losing, whose favorite team was losing. And in my understanding, that kind of an argument might just have ended up in words. But guess what? The one whose side was losing, whose favorite side was losing, took out the gun, shot dead the other one. In most countries, as I've said before, wars are declared by presidents, and presidents in most countries, let me safely argue that all over the world, we've got 80% men presidents and less than 20% women presidents. So if you go to any situation when there are wars, whether it's intercontinental wars, inter-country wars, international wars, or civil wars, the countries or the organizations that are warring are led by men. And my understanding is that because each of one of them wants to prove a point that he or she cannot be pushed, not he or she, but he cannot be pushed around by someone else. And that other one wants also to show the same point that he's a man. And look where all this gets the world. It gets us into a very difficult, in a very painful, hurtful situation. There are wars and people are losing their lives just because there are men leading. I believe if most countries were led by women, we should be having less and less wars, if any. But because we want to prove that point as men, that wrong point, then we are getting everything wrong. I can go on and on. But I'm challenging men today. I'm challenging men. I'm not bearing women. I'm not saying women shouldn't take part. But I'm saying, men, please respond to this discussion. Respond to this discussion in order to build it forward. Leave your comment. Give me your input. Give me your thoughts. Give me the positive things that men do, but also give me the negatives that men do. Give me suggestions. Let us share suggestions how we can make this world a better place for all, women especially. Next time, we'll be talking about women. Excuse me. But today is men. Thank you. Have a wonderful time.